Blog Talk Radio.
We are the UR Tennis Network. Our mission is to be the voice of tennis. We enlist a team of passionate enthusiasts to promote our sport. We strive to bring interesting perspectives on the many spins of tennis. Our goal is to provide the learners of our sport with current news and information from many angles. We seek active participation from communities interested in tennis, but tennis is not interested in them. We are expanding our outreach. Tennis is a true lifetime sport that needs to be talked about, and the UR Tennis Network pledges to pursue this idea relentlessly.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Parenting Aces radio show on Blog Talk Radio's UR Tennis Network. I'm your host, Lisa Stone, and we have a really interesting guest for you today. Coach Kelly Jones of Furman University is with us, and Kelly is one of those guys that has experienced tennis from every angle as a junior player, a college player, a professional, a national coach, a college coach now, and also he's now the parent of a high-level junior daughter who aspires to play college tennis. So he has so much experience and so much knowledge to share, and I'm really excited to jump in with that. Before I bring Kelly on the line, though, I just want to let y'all know his wife, Tammy, was scheduled to join us as well. She is a volunteer assistant coach at Furman and works with Kelly with the men's team, but unfortunately she's under the weather today, so she couldn't be with us, so wishing her a speedy recovery. And I also wanted to just point out that luckily Kelly is way more on the ball than I am, and I totally had a scheduling snafu for today's show and double booked and didn't realize I had double booked. So for those of you tuning in expecting to hear Lavi Sack, his podcast will be aired at 1:30 Eastern today, so please call back and tune in at 1:30. Stay on the line with us now to hear Kelly, and for those of you who would like to call in with any questions, our number to call in is 714-583-6853. Again, that's 714-583-6853. I hope you'll call in and chat with us. So for now, let me bring Kelly on the line, and let's jump right in. Kelly, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, Lisa. Thanks for having me.
I had the opportunity to finally meet you face-to-face a few weeks ago. My son was playing in a tournament at Furman, and not only did I get the chance to chat with you, but also got the chance to chat with your wife, Tammy, and to see your beautiful campus and your beautiful tennis facilities. And I just want to share with my listeners, if you haven't looked at Furman as an option for your child for college tennis, please take a look at it. The campus is exquisite, the town is exquisite, and the tennis facilities are just spectacular. So congratulations on that.
Well, thanks for that plug. We moved up here 2 years ago. My family and I moved up here 3 years ago, and I was just in awe of what Furman has to offer for the student athlete, the experience here. Not to mention the tennis center, which really blew me away. Not really knowing much about Furman and seeing the facility they have here is just amazing. So, we're trying our best to reach out and to broaden the spectrum of Furman as far as our ability to recruit from further away than just this geographical area that has been pretty typical of Furman. But it's a great place, and we're really blessed to be here.
Well, that's great. I have to tell you something really funny. I was reading Bobby Blair's book this past week, Hiding Inside the Baseline, and those of you who listen to Parenting Aces show, Bobby was on the show during the U.S. Open, actually. I had the opportunity to meet him and interview him on the show, but your name is in this book all over the place, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. I
didn't know that. Okay.
I mean, it was really cool to read the book, and it's kind of, a history of the decade of the 80s and 90s, decades of the 80s and 90s tennis in this country, it was very fun to read, because a lot of the people mentioned in the book are people that I've had the opportunity to meet in the last couple of years with Parenting Aces, and it was just fun to read about you guys in your younger years. So I enjoyed that very much. But okay, so let's jump right in. I want you, if you don't mind, to give my listeners just an overview of your life in tennis, because it started at a young age and is continuing now, and your roles have changed over the years. So maybe you can just kind of give us a quick timeline of where you started and where you are right now.
Sure. I'll try to be quick with this, but going through the juniors years ago was a lot different than it is now, no doubt. But as far as my career, I was one of the top juniors in the country. Went to Pepperdine, turned pro after 3.5 years. 12 years on the tour. I played about 48 Grand Slam events. Was ranked number 1 in the world at one point in doubles, even though that wasn't really a goal of mine. Finished my professional career and jumped right into as a national coach for the USTA, basically recruiting and scouting for the USTA. I was responsible for the Midwest section. That led me to start coaching professional players. I worked with, coached Marty Fish, John Isner, James Blake, Rajiv Ram. I developed some really good players that are still playing, Tim Smechek, and then started an academy. So I've had all these different types of experiences that have, for the good and the bad of our sport, I would say. We had an academy for 2 years. I wouldn't do it again, but I'm glad I had that experience, and really college tennis was the next thing for me. I felt like it was something that I've always wanted to get back involved with, and I feel that this role here at Furman is just is such a rewarding role and experience of, getting having student athletes come in and all the roles are in the right place. They're not paying you. You're able to really do things the way you want to do it, and it's an academy, but in the right shape and form. So that's kind of the brief summary. I've got my wife and I. We have one daughter. She's 16 now. She was a full-time soccer player until 2 years ago. She was playing tennis during that time, but soccer was her main sport. Quit soccer 2 years ago, and now we've taken on this animal of USTA tennis in America, and what an animal it is. It's really eye-opening coming from this side of it. She's now 16, and she's playing all the nationals, and the experience is both good and kind of shocking and eye-opening at the same time. So we're right in the thick of it. She's going to be a junior, rising junior, so we're starting the college process. Well, we've got all these different things going on, and it's been quite a journey so far.
Well, it's so interesting to hear you call junior tennis an animal, and I'm curious to hear from you, because you came up through the ranks of junior tennis in the U.S. What do you see that's so different now with your daughter than what you experienced as a player?
Well, first of all, I think it's a lot harder. Everybody thinks that it's easier, but I think it's a lot harder to be, number one, it's harder to enjoy the sport. It's harder to really develop in a way that is in its most simplistic form. All the way that things are going, it just makes it harder to really enjoy the sport and enjoy it. Every year you have, things change a little bit every year, and it's hard because all the information, everything that's sort of being pressed down in player development and the way things are going just kind of sucks the fun out of it. And it's just like, well, where's the fun in this? We live down in Florida, and the tennis circuit down there, and Florida has a great section, but it's just like nothing reminded me of growing up playing tennis and why did you play tennis. Nothing reminds me of the fun, of of watching other players enjoy it, and that whole idea that this is just an experience and a journey of trying to get better. So there are so many different changes, some good and some are bad. I'm not saying we should go back to the way it was, but one of the things that is really kind of lost in this generation of developing is sort of a real simplistic approach of developing over time. Everybody's in a hurry. There's emergencies going on. Everybody wants to jump levels, and there's really just a sense of, okay, well, I want to achieve one level, and then I want to go to the next level, and it's like people don't know what that is anymore. People are out traveling all over the world playing ITS. I mean, that's fine, except that if there's competition next door in your neighborhood and you're not winning tournaments in your section, you can't beat the best players. Why are you traveling all over the world? It's kind of this whole idea that we can't do it here is kind of funny and sad at the same time. But the whole approach to tennis and whether it's tennis or anything else, development is something that takes a lot of time, and it's over time. It's not. I want my daughter who's 12. I want her to be, to be playing with 18-year-olds tomorrow. I need the thing we hear all the time. Oh, he's got to be hitting a bigger ball, and he's 12 years old. It's like these things happen over time, not just forcing them down our throat. And there's just a lot more of that kind of stuff that is so different than when we were growing up. When my wife and I came off of the tour, we came off at the same time to raise a family and to start a new life. We couldn't believe the changes in sort of the development path and in the private sector and the way things were going. Everything was so complicated, and it's not. It's too complicated. It's got to be It's got to be much more simple than the way that it's going today. And that's one of the messages that I tell people all the time is that you've got to make a plan so that this is a simple way to measure development. Anyway, I'm going on, but I'm pretty passionate about these things because, having an academy, having a consultant business with my wife, where we had families all over the country coming in and basically guiding them through this process, it's the same thing over and over again, where there's no plan. It's very hard, and it's not their fault. It's not really the parents' fault. It's just that there's a lot of things that are going on, too much information that really makes everything so confusing, and it's chaotic. And I call it the chaos in America. It really is.
It is, and you're right. And it's very interesting to hear you say that you're helping families through the process. I had the thrill of interviewing Mary Carrillo last year, and she was telling me that when she was coming up through the juniors, basically her family knew nothing about tennis, and she happened to live where the McEnroes lived, and they knew the McEnroes knew everything about tennis, so they just basically did whatever the McEnroes were doing. And she said,
right.
If they signed up for a tournament, we signed up for the tournament because we just
right.
did what they did. And I think that aspect of junior tennis development has been lost because people are so scared to talk about what they're doing, to share what they're doing, and to mentor each other through the process. And honestly, I mean, that's how Parenting Aces kind of came about, is because I was so lost with trying to figure out the best way to help my son that I just figured I would kind of go out into cyberspace and hope that people that knew more than I did would step up and share. And they have, luckily they have.
Yeah.
So what are you doing with your child that has helped her, because you said she's only been really competing at this level for 2 years. How did you figure out how to get her from full-time soccer, part-time tennis to national level tennis player?
Well, that was kind of our goal in the first place, was to help her become an athlete before she became a tennis player. I didn't want her to be playing, 80 matches a year at 10 years old, 11 years old. I think that's an absolute disaster. And I think anybody that's doing that should stop doing it right now. That is a disaster. They're going to burn out. But, our goal was to help her to become an athlete, and within an athlete, learn how to play a sort of tennis, as long as your technique is up to standard. Our goal was Her technique has to be very good. We have to keep her in tournaments. So she'd play about 6-8 tournaments a year between the ages of 10 to 13. She did very well in them, but a lot of that is because her technique was good. When she played, she didn't have to worry about whether or not she'd be able to hit the ball in the court. The technique was there, which allowed her to have confidence in her ability. So, but again, going back to the goal was we wanted her at 16 and 17 to be really sort of hit the accelerator, and 18 and really love the sport and really realize, okay, I'm good at it, and now I really want to make something of it, versus at 13, 14, you don't even know what you want, first of all. You're growing, you're mentally and physically, you've got so many things that are going on, and all this stuff too young is being forced down these kids' throats, and then all of a sudden at 16, when they're starting to mature a little bit more, it comes to a point, what do you really want? Look at where, if it becomes a job at 12, 13, and 14, they're going to hate tennis eventually. You kind of suck the life out of them. So not in every circumstance, but the majority of players will get burned out, and by 18, they've been doing it for 10 years, 8 years or so, and it's no fun anymore. It's lost its allure. It's kind of gone, and so our goal was to get to the point where she is sort of coming into taking ownership of it. She's the one that's the driving force, in this path, it's very simple. We're not looking ahead. She doesn't even know. She knows now what tennis recruiting is. She's 16. Tennis Recruiting Network. She knows what it is. And now we're starting to let her in on some things. When we go to tournaments, she doesn't look at draws. Now she knows that she's going to be seated at these, because the last standing list nationally, I think she was 12 in the 16. So she will be seated at these events, probably fairly high, because not all of them play. So the bottom line is that kids have enough pressure on them. They don't need to be looking at tennisrecruiting.net. I think that's horrible. It's great for college coaches like myself. But they need to be able to keep this narrow path, and kind of with blinders on, in the sense that they put enough pressure on themselves to win. They don't need all this other baggage that just gets thrown on them. So we've kept her away from that on purpose. And the thing is, when she goes to tournaments, she wants to win. As a parent, there's not much more I can ask or want from any kid or player, that when they get in, all they want to do is win. And if you look at her record in back draws, she is phenomenal. She has a phenomenal record in back draws, and that shows a lot about character and about her wanting to continue to improve and stuff like that. So, our development path is very simple. She's 16. She's going to play 16 nationals. We have to look ahead a little bit because of the craziness of this system that we deal with. That's a whole nother issue. But the fact is that we want her to feel like she'll accomplish this level, and then we'll move on. It's a very simple formula that we've all been using throughout the years, and now it's kind of lost its value because of a lot of reasons, and that's something we could get into later. But anyway, I hope that helps a little bit, Lisa.
Well, it does. It definitely does. And is playing college tennis on her path?
Oh, yeah.
Is that what she wants to do?
She's going to college. Yes, ma'am. There's no doubt about it. I don't care how good she is. She's going to college.
Well, it's interesting. I was talking to the parents of a professional player yesterday, and we were just having a casual conversation, and I mentioned that, my son's preparing to go to our Southern Closed at the end of this week. It's coming up, and the winner of the Southern Closed gets an automatic spot in Kalamazoo, so it's a big tournament. And
right.
And so these parents of this professional player were asking me, so are any of the kids that are playing Southern going right into the pros? And I was taken aback by that question, because to me, if a kid is playing the Southern Closed, they're obviously on a pathway to college. To me, that's obvious, but I guess it's maybe that's not the way it used to be. But I just was so taken aback by that question, because in my mind, if you're still playing in the 18s, your sectional closed tournament, then you're kind of on that pathway to to play college tennis and then see where things develop and see if you have what it takes to try your hand at the professional level. But
yeah, I think you can remove the word kinda.
Yeah.
they're definitely on that path.
When you were coming up, were kids seriously contemplating pros that were playing this level of tournament still in the juniors?
Absolutely not. I mean, we only had a handful of players, not even a handful, only a couple players that turned pro before college when I was playing, and that's a whole nother generation. And now we've kind of gone from one extreme, sort of that extreme, to another extreme about 10 years ago where all the top kids thought they were going pro and didn't go to college, and that was a huge mistake. And now we're getting to that point where most of the people are starting to be a lot more realistic about the avenue, college tennis, what it will provide, the 4 years in school to see if you're going to be good enough. Because the bottom line is that if you're ranked in the top 10 in college, you're about equal to somebody ranked around 250 to 300 on the tour. That's about the level. Okay. Somewhere in there. So then you know that, hey, maybe I'm ready to give this a try. So again, it's you're at one level, go to the next level. You're at that level, find the next level. And I mean, if anybody doesn't know this, that the life of a professional player at the lower levels is absolutely dog eat dog, and it is miserable. You try to get out of that level as fast as possible, and that's why if juniors go into that level and they stay there for a long period of time, there's absolutely nothing fun about it. Nobody cares about you. It reminds you nothing of professional tennis, and so people that are making those choices, I hope that they are informed about really what's going on, because college tennis is really the avenue now, considering a lot of the factors. It's taking players longer to become professionals. The average age is up in the high 20s now that are in the top 100. So hopefully that information will really help people to decide to do, maybe to do the right thing instead of just thinking that pro tennis is what they want to do and it's the only direction for them.
Well, let's talk a little bit about choosing college and what that means for a player, because at least on the men's side, there are very few spots available on college rosters. There's very little scholarship money available now. Gone are the days where kids are getting full rides to college. I mean, basically you have to be, I would guess, in the top 5 in the country to even think you're going to get a full ride anymore. And on the men's side. The women's side is very different, and we're going to talk about that too.
Yes.
So, we say how, we keep hearing that the problem with U.S. tennis is we're not attracting the good athletes to our sport. My contention is we're not attracting the good athletes because college tennis has become such a difficult reach now. I mean, the money's not there, the spots aren't there, our students are competing internationally for spots on rosters. So can you address that a little bit and clear up any misconceptions or confirm anything I'm saying and kind of address from the parent side how we should be looking at tennis and college tennis in particular?
Yeah, this goes back to when we're recruiting and we have student athletes, good players that are in our office, and we're talking to them about college choices and whatnot. But before I go there, I just want to let you know that your article that you did, where you took the top 100 players, top 100 U.S. players, men and women, and you did the results of major impact, and not an impact. I really hope that...
That wasn't me. That was Ross Greenstein that did that. I just shared it.
Oh, Ross did that. Okay, you shared it with everybody.
Yes.
I hope that people take a look at that and see that because the information that it provides really goes back to what are the goals. the goals of your son. We're talking about males in particular, but what are the goals? And so what you see is that if you look in tennis recruiting, every 5-star and most 4-stars have the big schools on their list. They're going after the little tiny piece of pie, and at these these big programs. And that article confirmed that there's so many of these really good players and student athletes that are going to these bigger schools and sitting and maybe never ever playing. And there's a couple reasons that's happening, and it was stated in that article. But part of it is that college is an international sport, whether you like it or not. It is. We recruited 2 international players, great guys. We strong values and ethics. We love to stay. We will stay mostly American, I can tell you that. But a lot of the kids that are looking at our school decide to go to bigger schools and sit for the same reason that the article found, is that they would like to go to the school of their choice, be part of that team, and never play. And does that mean they're burnt out? I mean, where's the love for the sport if you really want to play? Get into a school that you will be able to play. That experience is completely different than somebody sitting on the bench. But I don't blame anybody for their choices. It's just unfortunate that a lot of these really good players are choosing to go to big programs where they never play. It's hard. It's hard to go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's interesting because my son and I have been having that conversation a lot lately. I mean, he's a rising senior, and we're really in the throes of all this stuff right now with the college recruiting. And
sure.
One of the pieces of advice I gave him is, because he's one of those. I mean, he loves the allure of the big program with the all the amenities that come along with that, including being able to say you're on the team at big school U, and having the bragging. But one thing I said to him was, you need to talk to the 7, 8, 9 guy on that team and ask
no question.
What does it look like to be 7, 8, 9? What does your day look like? What happens when the team is traveling? Where are you? How many private sessions are you getting with the coaches, with the physical trainer, with with the nutrition person? I mean, it's a very different life to be in the top 6 versus being below.
Yes, it is. And those are good questions.
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes in line with Ross's article that if you're gonna make that choice to go to the big school, knowing that the likelihood is you will be on the bench, what does that mean for you on a daily basis? You're still giving up all of the social life and the fraternity, sorority life, all of that for the sport, but the sport's not giving to you what maybe you expect. And I think it's really important that kids have a clear picture of that.
Yeah, I mean, there are the percentages are so low. I think in that article it stated that too, that if you're on the bench your first year, your chances of actually being a major impact player are extremely low. What student athletes don't understand is that when we're recruiting, we're not recruiting the next year to recruit somebody that's going to be sitting on the bench. We're trying to recruit somebody that's going to come in and play. So what does that mean for somebody that's not playing? That means that we're still trying to get somebody to replace the level that we just lost.
Right.
So it's not just that your first year you're on the bench and you're scratching your way to try to get in the lineup. It's like every year you're going to try to get better. The idea is to get better as a program, not to be recruiting guys that are going to come in and try to make it. So programs need those guys on the bench. They need the 7, 8, 9 guy in case somebody gets injured. You want to have depth on your team and so on. But it goes back to the goals about you as a player and as a family. What's the goal here? Is the goal to play? Do you want that experience, or are you okay maybe getting into the lineup every now and then, but being involved in a big program? What's the experience?
Right. And I think it's tough to ask those questions until you're really right on the edge of the process, because it's easy to get caught up in the glamour of college tennis when you're 14, 15, even 16. But once you hit that junior year of high school and the reality's starting to set in that, oh my gosh, this is right around the corner for me, I need to have an understanding of what it truly looks like, then I think the kids tend to come around and, start to really assess their own ability better, assess their playability, their marketability, and all of that more accurately than they may have done at 14, 15. So it's an interesting process, and I mean, you go through it from the coaching side every day. Now you're going through it from the parent side. What are you learning as a parent? Are you learning stuff that you will apply as a coach?
Well, no doubt about that. From my experience here, and before I got into this job, and consulting with families about the priorities of what they're looking for, and so here's some advice for parents, and when you're choosing programs, you got to remember that college coaching is a sell job. We're selling our program, okay? And anytime somebody is selling something, you have to do your homework. You have to do your homework. And that means that you should be, you go on Facebook, you can find former players, current players, ask them questions about the program, ask them questions about the university, about the philosophy of the coach, how he treats the players, what the program's like. Are they doing 6 a.m. runs every 5 days a week? Get as much information as you can before you throw, you jump into the pool. It's amazing to me how little information parents have when they're looking at 1 or 2, 3 programs, and they know very little about the situation. One of the first questions I ask a junior when they student athlete when they call me is, okay, what do you know? Tell me what you know. What do you know about me? What do you know about this? And usually not much. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's pretty amazing. That means they're not educated in the process. And if you're not educated in the process, you are going to make a decision that could be disastrous, or you might get really lucky. But there's so much information out there for you if you do your research, ask questions, my daughter just wrote 5 girls that are current players and former players from these teams that she's interested in, and they all wrote back like 3 or 4 paragraphs. And you're not going to tell me that kind of information really helps us as a family to figure out the values of the coach, the values of the program, and what they're trying to do there? I mean, it gives us huge insight. It's invaluable.
Right.
It's not that tough.
Right. But it is a matter of, from the student athlete side, especially, the younger juniors, they're, for whatever reason, hesitant to reach out like that. They feel like it's not appropriate, or they're bugging them, or whatever. And I think what you're saying is a really important message for parents to hear, but also hopefully for them to share with their kids, is that this is part of the process that you have to do. And you have to reach out. And it's not viewed as being a pain in the neck, or that you're bugging the player or bugging the coach. It's a necessary piece of the puzzle. Yes.
Yeah. And it's just like if you're doing anything. If somebody's selling you something, you are not just going to buy it point blank. You've got to do your research, because what people are selling and what you're getting are often 2 completely different things. It doesn't matter if it's in the private sector and you've got a coach around the corner that's selling his services. It doesn't matter. It's the same thing. You've got to do your homework.
Right. That's a great point. All right, I'm going to switch gears for a little bit because we're just past the halfway point, and I know you have a lot of knowledge to share, so I'm going to pick your brain. We touched on a little bit the ways that junior tennis has changed in this country, and the rule changes and the process changes that are happening. It seems every year there's something new coming out. Can you talk a little bit about what you're seeing as a coach in terms of the level of player that is coming to you, how these rule changes have impacted development and what you're getting in the 18-year-old that's starting college?
Well, I think the most obvious thing to me is that most of the student athletes, the kids that I talk to, really don't have a plan. And to me, that's essential for, whatever you're doing. It's having a plan. I mean, what are the goals? What are you trying to achieve? And the goals don't have to be like, oh, I got to sit down and make 10. It doesn't have to be. It can be very, very simple. And it's like, to me, the average, it's not average. What I'm saying is that the average percentage-wise player really doesn't have a sort of an understanding of what it's like to reach a level and the importance of reaching levels and then carrying on and trying to go for the next level and the next level. Everybody just wants to come in and say, this is my potential. This is what I'm worth, because when I'm playing well, this is how good I am. And really, the results usually show quite a different message. They show maybe inconsistencies in certain areas and so on. But the bottom line is that everybody wants to believe that their potential, that everybody should be judging them based on their potential, and that's a real misnomer. None of us play at our potential. A large percentage of the time, it's how you deal with the middle ground, the middle area, and then your results show consistency through that. So what I'm saying is that you have a plan and you're saying, I want to get to this level. What's it going to take to get to that level? This is actually a good story, because I had a student athlete on my team not too long who's here now, and he sat down in my office and he said, what would you do if you were me? And I just, in 5 minutes, I got information from him. What would it be important? What's important to him? And then we went through this plan of, well, you want to achieve at this level because you can't fool yourself if you don't achieve. That's what people don't understand. They think this is my potential, but you haven't achieved that, so there's no way that you have the experience that goes through all those necessary little experiences of the good and the bad to get you to that point. And that's kind of what we're missing here. So with this student, I just said, here's the plan, a simple plan, and he not only did he go out and do that, he just blew it all away. So these kind of things are so important, but it's hard. It's really hard to do in the system. The system doesn't promote sort of this natural development path where you don't have to look ahead. You stay with what you're doing at the moment, what you're working on. You go to tournaments, you come back, you work on those things, and you take these little steps over time until they become big development steps. So we lose that with our system, within our system, because it's hard. We end up having to play the point system and stuff like that, and we don't do that in a sense, because you play the tournaments. If you do well, your ranking is going to, everything else is going to fall in place. I wish everybody kind of put that into their mentality more so than chasing the points. But it's difficult. I'm not here to tell anybody it's simple. It's challenging. It can be daunting. There's a lot of things that are going in, but how do you keep things simple? That is the main thing.
Well, and I think one thing you just said, needs to be reemphasized, and that is that when you get into the tournament, you have to win the matches. I mean,
yeah.
just chasing points around doesn't do a player any good if they're not winning matches and progressing through the draw in a tournament. And it doesn't do them good mentally. It doesn't do them any good with their ranking. It doesn't do them any good in terms of building confidence. And so, but the challenge still, and I know USTA, keeps saying it's trying to do away with the point chasing, and that's fine, but the reality of the situation is you can't get into the tournament if your ranking isn't at a high enough level. And the only way to get your ranking up is to win matches and earn ranking points. And there are always going to be people that, look for the tournament with the least challenging draw, so their child can get as far as possible and earn as many points as possible, even though they haven't beaten anybody that's a significant win for them.
Yeah, I know. And it's
go ahead.
Yeah, it's hard, Lisa. It's really hard for those parents that are trying to do the right thing. They're trying to give their son or daughter the best opportunity. I get it, and I'm not going to sit here and tell somebody that they shouldn't do that. I think the main thing here is that you've got to be looking long term. You have to look long term to say this is about parenting. This is about parenting. If my daughter if it was about school and how we're going to progress through school, it's got to be that same kind of progression as if you were in school. You don't go from algebra to calculus 2 or 3. You've got to go through the steps. And so these are the kind of things that, as a parent, you've got to. This is just like if they were in school, except it looks a lot different. Now, all these tournaments that they're playing and so on. I mean, of course, why do you think the kids get to school and they're burnt out? They finally get to their program and they don't have the desire or the real motivation to really push forward and want to get better. I don't blame a lot of these kids. I mean, it's crazy. But you have to take that into consideration, because if you don't, they're going to be so burnt out and hate tennis by the time college comes around, or the first, second year in college, that we're not doing them any good right now at this level.
Well, and as I've mentioned on the show before, what we're seeing with my son's group of friends is he's got several friends who graduated high school this year who are choosing not to play tennis in college. They're choosing to go to college purely for the college experience and the education, and they may or may not play club level tennis, but they are definitely not playing varsity level tennis. And as a parent, it makes me sad. It scares me because, for my son, since he was 9 years old, all he's ever said is, I can't wait to play in college, I can't wait to play in college. And I'm sure these kids said the same thing when they were 9, 10 years old. What happened to change that? What made them make that huge decision that, you know what, I'm done?
Yeah. I know. And it's sad.
It's sad, and it's a challenge as a parent, and that's why I'm really fascinated with the path that you and Tammy have taken with your daughter of waiting so long to focus solely on tennis, in hopes, I'm sure, of not having the burnout and keeping her excited and keeping her love of the sport alive. And I think it's pretty interesting. Maybe you can share with us a little bit about, we've talked a lot about the men's side of college tennis. You have to be now learning about what's going on the women's side, since you have a daughter that's heading that direction. Can you share some insights with us, what you've learned?
Yes. Kind of going back to just real briefly, as far as the development and how we choose to do things, and I'm not going to pretend that we have it's not a fair comparison, because we have 2 former pro players that are coaching our daughter, but her practice is an hour and a half to 2 hours a day, 6 days a week if we don't have any tournaments. And, that, again, is one of the things where I think there's a lot of misinformation about how much time you need to be on the court. It needs to be quality, and that's what we believe in, the quality of being on the court. But compared to her peers, I mean, she's probably had, maybe a third, definitely less than a half of the amount of hours on the court. So we've got to be really sort of understand, where burnout comes from. It's not just going to the tournaments. It's the everyday thing. The kids in the academy, they get burned out very easily because it becomes a job, and you're training. I'm not saying all academies, because some do a really good job, but I'm just saying as a whole, you don't need to be on the court 4 hours a day. As a matter of fact, a lot of times that can be counterproductive. So we've just chosen to do it this way in order to keep interest, so that at 16, 17, she's still interested. And I can tell you, when we go to tournaments, she's fired up to be there, which is a great thing at 16. So anyway, like I said, the path is probably different than most, but that's when you have a daughter that's excited about playing tournaments, that makes you feel pretty good. But anyway, the college tennis on the women's side is definitely different, and I'm going to be completely honest with you. We're scared. We've got some real hesitation about where she's going to go, because what that coach, there's a lot of coaches that have their cookie cutter approach, their own philosophies on how things are done, and I would say that the way that we coach is probably opposite of the majority of coaches, the way that they do things, and we're really concerned about what that coach is going to do to her game once they get into the program. It's a major concern of mine. I don't think a lot of players take a whole lot of consideration into the coach, his philosophy, the way that he teaches and trains. What are his what is he what kind of things does he do on the court? But we're very concerned with that, and it's a major issue for us, looking into the college system. So that's one of the things for us. But as a whole, finding out about the coach, about the program, you've got narrowing down the search. For girls it's different, because typically the fully funded program is 8 scholarships. So the women definitely have more opportunities. But again, what are the goals? The goals are to play. When she goes to college, her goal is to play. It's definitely not going to be to sit. So, she'll find the right fit, hopefully, if we can narrow it down to somebody that we believe in and trust. It's part of the process and the learning process for us. But I'm in the system, so I kind of know how it works, and I feel like we should have a little bit more of a handle than the average person. But again, you got to do your research, Lisa. You got to reach out and do your research.
Well, one of the things that we've been told is you have to be careful about choosing a college based on the coach, because coaches leave, and we're seeing that.
That's true.
There's a huge carousel effect happening this year. Lots of coaches are changing programs or leaving college tennis altogether. And so I'm just curious, because finding the right coach is such a critical piece of the pie for you and your daughter's situation, how are you going to manage that?
Yeah, it's a real issue, and I get that, and I get that all the time about me being here, and the student athletes that we're recruiting are concerned about my time here and how long I'll be here. I understand that. There's no perfect scenario, but I think there's no way that you can know what's going on inside a family. If a coach has a better opportunity, or an advancement, there's no way to know what's going on there. But it should be one of the considerations. It's not everything. And even if it's for 2 years or so, getting into the right program, the right fit, the right school, and so on. There's no perfect way to do it, but at least this part of it is something that you could really research. If it's going to be, the coach and you're going there, you want to make sure that you're doing your research. There's nothing you can do about it if the coach leaves. I understand that part. There's no way around it.
Right. And so for your daughter, is she looking at college as a step in her development toward professional tennis, or does she have a different next step in mind, or does she know yet?
I mean, her dream is to be a pro. Like hundreds of kids, her dream is to play professional tennis. I mean, she knows her mom and dad played on the tour, and we have exposed her to the U.S. Open and some other things, and she knows, our connections and whatnot. But it's her dream. But the thing is that her dream will only be realized by the accomplishments of each level. Which goes back to what I was saying before, which is college is the next level. If she succeeds and becomes one of the top college players, then she knows that she might have a shot, a very small shot. So that's yeah. I mean, it's definitely a dream, and we want to let her live her dreams, but you got to be realistic on a regular basis as well.
Right. Well, one of the interesting conversations that another interesting conversation I've had recently is, looking at that next step. So, if the Pro Tour is what you're aspiring to after college, then when you're looking at college programs, you need to look for a program that has a history of developing players for the tour, or that has a coach who has that ability. But for a lot of kids, they're not looking to play professionally. Maybe they're going to dabble in it during the summers, but they're going to go on to grad school, or they're going to go into a family business or whatever post-college. And so they're maybe looking at their college experience in a different light. And so that's why I asked you the question, what is she looking to do post-college? Because I think that has to be a part of the conversation as well. Are you looking at college to develop you for the Pro Tour, or is this going to be the last stop on your tennis development, and you're going to have your tennis the rest of your life to play in leagues and play adult tournaments and whatever, but the Pro Tour is not going to be a piece of that?
Yeah, well, let's say on our team we have one student athlete who has dreams of being a pro. So everybody else is here to reach their potential. Their goal is to reach their potential, be part of a really exciting team, and individually try to do whatever they can to help the team. And those things are X, Y, and Z. So, what we tell players, student athletes in our recruiting phone call conversations or meetings here at Furman is that regardless of whether you want to be a pro player or whatever, the things that are going to get us excited about recruiting athletes are their motivation, their kind of character, and what they want to do, their goals coming into college tennis. What the goals can be. I want to try to reach my potential. Well, that's really the same thing, regardless of somebody else moving on to play professional tennis. It's the same thing in the sense of what's the development of the individual. What are they trying to do to accomplish and achieve these things? So, for us, and I'm thinking that would be a similar philosophy to the other college coaches, that it's not just about getting players that want to be professionals, but the one thing that if kids have a desire to be professionals, sometimes there's a little bit more motivation to be, doing extra, coming in on your own, doing a little bit of extra here and there, and being competitive during the summer.
Right.
So I hope I answered that question. It's just, you can provide all of those things,
sure,
those experiences.
Sure. Well, I know you are running camps this summer on the Furman campus, as a lot of college coaches are doing.
Yes.
Can you share with us the importance of juniors attending camps on college campuses at different stages? So, for instance, my son started going to camp at University of Georgia at age 9, and what he was learning at age 9 was very different from what he learned when he attended at age 15. So can you share with the parents a little bit about why they should be putting their kids in these camps and what they might get out of that?
Well, I think for the juniors that are let's say freshmen, maybe freshmen and below, I think the camp experience can be awesome. To learn about college tennis, to give them some kind of a different atmosphere. I know my daughter did it when she was a freshman. She did 2 weeks in a row and just absolutely loved it. It's not, you don't have to be playing all the junior nationals during that summer, so it's not nearly as important. But the experiences that you can get from interacting with college coaches, you're interacting with a lot of either former players or current players on college teams. There's a lot of really good things that you can get out of these camps other than just tennis. And I think it's probably as much the tennis as these other things that your son probably got out of it. It really that you get to see sort of a different type of atmosphere. Now there are other camps during the year that can be for really high performance players. But I think once you get into your sophomore year or whatever, and if you're really looking to play at a D1 school, your summer should be full of competitive opportunities. That's the only time that you have when you're not in school and you're not crammed with all these other obligations, that you can really go out and learn and improve.
Right. And so you're saying the higher level players, once they're in that sophomore junior year, are better served at spending their summers at the tournaments rather than in camps. But prior to that the camps can really serve a purpose in terms of exposure and getting better at tennis, but also kind of getting a feel for what college tennis is. Absolutely.
I think it comes down to what the goals of the individuals, and we have some good 15-year-old girls that are attending our camp this summer, and they'll go a week of camp or 4 or 5 days of camp, and then they'll play tournaments on the weekend. So that's their program, and they're at that stage where they're really trying to improve their game, and we offer that kind of experience so that they'll take that practice time into these tournaments, and hopefully after 3 or 4 weeks of doing this, they're going to see some major improvements.
Sure. And so to sign up for camps at Furman, they just go on the Furman website, or how do we get that information?
It's actually if anybody Googles Furman tennis Nike tennis camp at Furman University, the link comes up, or Furman tennis camp. You'll see the links are there for. And it's ussportscamps.com is the link, and then you go in and you find tennis and you find our location, ussportscamps.com. So it's really easy to get in and sign up, and we do a really good job with our tournament players. Basically, the drills and everything we do, and the match play is really good. It definitely for those players, they can improve. At camp here.
Fantastic. Well, we're coming down to our last minute or so, and I just wanted to say I loved getting to meet and chat with you on the Furman campus when I had that opportunity, but I've really loved getting to dig a little deeper and hear more about your philosophy as now a tennis parent, bringing her system and getting her ready to play college tennis. So thank you so much for taking time to come chat, and I know you're busy, and have all these kids there ready for camp, so thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, we're getting there.
And
it's a pleasure.
I look really forward to running into you. I'm sad to hear you won't be down in Mobile next week, but I'm sure we'll run into you at some other events.
Sounds good, Lisa. Thanks for having me on the show. Hopefully, hopefully sharing some information will help somebody.
Absolutely. Thank you. Have a great day.
Pleasure.
And
thank you, Lisa.
Tell Tammy I hope she feels better, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
All right. Thank you. Likewise.
Bye.
Bye now.
Bye. So, listeners, I wanted to just let you know that we have another show coming up in a half an hour with Lavi Sack of ShotStats Challenger, which is a device that you put on your tennis racket to turn your racket into a smart racket. And it's a great interview. It's pre-recorded, so you won't have the opportunity to call in, but I hope you'll take the opportunity to listen to it. Both this show and the show with Lavi will be on ParentingAces.com later today on our, as well as on our YouTube channel. So I hope you enjoyed the show. Have a great week, and I'll see you next week.